The pounding on the door came like thunder in a quiet storm, rattling the frames on the wall until one picture tilted sideways. Oakwood Heights wasn't supposed to sound like this. This neighborhood was built on a promise of calm, sprinklers hissing across green lawns, porch lights flicking on at the same hour every evening, children's laughter carried faintly on the breeze before bedtime. But the voice that cut through the door carried none of that warmth. It was cold, deliberate, a voice that belonged more to a crime drama than a cul-de-sac. "Open the door, Mr. Thompson. Your wife is under arrest." Each word hit me harder than the pounding. My stomach lurched. Amy, arrested? For what? My hand trembled against the knob, the silence behind me pressing like a weight. I pulled the door open, and there they were. 3 men, shoulder to shoulder, their uniforms crisp, almost too perfect. Dark navy fabric stretched tight, brass pins gleaming, pistols already drawn and steady. Their sunglasses hid their eyes even though the sun had long since dipped below the rooftops. Not a hint of courtesy, no fake smiles, just the suffocating silence of men who believed they had already won. "Step aside, sir," the one in front said, his boots crunching against the gravel as he shifted closer. "She's coming with us." For a moment I couldn't move. My throat felt tight, my mind spinning through every possibility, every question. Why my wife? Why tonight? Their presence wasn't casual, it was suffocating, like a noose pulling tighter. But what they didn't realize was that Amy wasn't of the type to cower in shadows. She wasn't some frightened woman they could drag away with threats and theatrics. Her footsteps echoed from down the hall, steady, deliberate, not rushed, and when she appeared behind me in the doorway, the air shifted. She wasn't in pajamas or casual clothes. She wasn't even dressed like she'd been caught off guard. She stepped out in her full-pressed uniform, her badge glinting in the porch light like a blade. The men froze. Their pistols were still raised, but their confidence cracked in an instant. Their eyes darted from the stripes on her sleeve to the calm, unshakable authority in her face. They weren't ready for this. They weren't ready for her. Amy's voice didn't need to rise above a whisper, but when she spoke, the words sliced the night clean in half. "Drop your guns." The smallest tremor of hesitation ran through their hands. Their knuckles whitened, their fingers twitched, but none of them dared to pull the trigger. The silence between us felt heavier than the weapons they held. 3 months earlier, Oakwood Heights had looked perfect. A fresh chapter for us, or at least that's what I'd thought. We'd signed the papers for the house on Maple Drive with relief in our chests, happy to leave behind years of moving headaches and instability. The lawns were trimmed to perfection, the neighbors waved with cheerful smiles, kids zipped down the sidewalks on bikes. It looked safe, quiet and normal, almost too normal. That illusion cracked the moment the HOA made their presence known. Letters filled our mailbox almost immediately, each one wrapped in stiff legal language but dripping with pettiness. "Your mailbox is 2 inches too tall. Your hedges are not uniformly trimmed." And then the kicker, a $90 fine for the garden flag Amy had hung proudly near the porch. A red, white and blue flag with an eagle soaring across it, the kind of flag you'd expect any American to be proud of. But in Oakwood Heights, apparently, it disrupted the visual harmony of the neighborhood. Barbara, the HOA president, led the charge. She strutted around like a general with her clipboard, barking about rules and fines, as if she were commanding troops in a war. Her smile was fake, her authority paper-thin, but she reveled in it. She loved the control, even if it was only over mailbox paint and flower beds. Amy never let it rattle her. She'd smirk at the letters, shake her head and mutter, "They have no idea who they're messing with." I thought it was a harmless joke, her way of brushing off the nonsense, but I noticed how carefully she filed each letter away. No anger, no fear, just patience, preparation. The pounding at our door proved Barbara had finally escalated. Petty fines were one thing. Sending men dressed as cops was something else entirely. And as those polished imposters stood on my porch, I realized they had no idea what kind of mistake they had made. Amy stepped fully into the porch light, her shoulders squared, her voice steady as stone. I said, "Drop your guns." The lead officer flinched, his confidence slipping. The man on his right muttered under his breath, "She's ranking, isn't she?" Amy's eyes never wavered. "Not just ranking, outranking, and you know it." That broke them. The officer on the right lowered his pistol first, placing it carefully on the porch railing. The second followed, his weapon clattering to the ground. The leader held on the longest, jaw clenched, but even he wasn't immune. Amy's stare cut through him until finally his hand shook and the pistol slipped from his grip. "Now, badges," Amy ordered. They hesitated, but it was too late. The truth was written all over their faces. Their shiny shields carried no weight, no state seal, no serial numbers, just props. One by one they unclipped the fakes and tossed them at her feet. From the sidewalk, Barbara's silhouette appeared, clipboard clutched against her chest. Her lips curled in a smug grin. She thought she'd orchestrated the final move in her petty war. But the moment she saw Amy's badge glint under the porch light, the grin faltered. Her clipboard seemed to shrink in her hands. "What are you doing?" Barbara snapped at the men, her voice sharp. "Arrest her! She's the criminal!" Amy turned her head just slightly, her voice slicing the night like a blade. "Enough!" The command was so sharp that Barbara actually staggered. Neighbors had begun peeking from behind curtains, porch lights popping on across the street. The show wasn't in shadows anymore. The whole community was watching. "These men aren't cops," Amy declared, her voice ringing out. "They're imposters, and you, Barbara, are the one who sent them." The murmurs started instantly. Curtains twitched, phones were raised. Barbara's smug expression cracked under the weight of eyes watching her. She sputtered, tried to salvage her crumbling authority, but nothing she said could drown out the sight of 3 grown men disarmed and exposed. The air buzzed with tension until real flashing lights appeared at the end of the street. Red and blue washed across the houses as cruisers pulled up. Sheriff Daniels climbed out, his expression already grim. One look at Amy's badge, one look at the disarmed imposters, and his head shook. "Impersonating officers," he muttered. "That's a felony." His deputies moved in quickly, cuffing the 3 men as the neighbors whispered among themselves. Barbara, desperate, shoved forward, her face red and wild. "You can't arrest them. I gave the order. I run this community, and she refused to pay her fine." The sheriff fixed his gaze on her, calm but cold. "So let me get this straight. You sent armed men dressed as officers to a resident S home over a 90 fine." Barbara froze, her mouth hanging open, but no words came out. The crowd chuckled. The whispers spread faster now, louder than any defense she could mount. "Ma'am," the sheriff continued, "you just admitted to conspiracy. You're coming with us too." Her face drained of color as deputies took her by the arm. For months she had bullied her way through this neighborhood with petty fines and false authority. But under the flashing red and blue, her reign ended in handcuffs. The HOA meeting that followed a week later didn't look anything like the ones before. No more smug speeches from Barbara, no more threats about mailboxes or garden flags. She wasn't there. She was sitting in county lockup, awaiting trial for conspiracy and impersonation. The board sat meekly, papers shuffled with nervous hands, their power deflated. Neighbors who once whispered now spoke openly. They stopped me on the street to thank Amy, to apologize for not standing up sooner. One older couple admitted Barbara had threatened foreclosure over weeds. Another confessed she'd bullied them into donating to her so-called community fund. Everything was out in the open now. And Amy. She went back to her work without fanfare. She never flaunted her badge, never boasted. It was never about proving herself. It was about drawing a line that should never have been crossed. That night, as we sat on our porch, cicadas humming in the trees, I turned to her. Barbara picked the wrong fight. Amy sipped her tea, her eyes steady, her smile calm. No, she said softly, she picked the wrong woman. And just like that, Oakwood Heights was never the same again.